Part 2. The Wild Boy of London and the Fairground Fiend Clarissa Everett. Chapter 12, here goes. South London, night. A trickle of slime stole down a wall, glistening in a slant of moonlight that fell between the nodding shed-like houses. It slipped between the cobbles, gathering as it went the particles of waste spattered across the street, gobbets of phlegm, flecks of vomit, the reeking overspill from domestic cesspits. The filth of the street percolated down. It nudged at the ceiling of an ancient sewer, crept through a crack in the crumbling mortar. It hung from the bricks in a single fat drop. Then it fell and landed, pat, on the head of a small boy covered in hair. Wild Boy opened his eyes. Everything was black. Not a crack of light anywhere. He was lying on his back on what felt like wet cloth. He heard dripping water, although his mouth was dry and tasted like mould. He extended a foot cautiously into the darkness, felt cold slime on broken brick. He tried to stay calm, but panic overwhelmed him. "I didn't do it," he gasped. "It wasn't me." He scrunched his eyes shut and prayed that when he opened them he'd back at the fair and everything would be normal. He opened his eyes and gazed heartbroken around the sewer. He was lying on a narrow ledge that ran along the tunnel. Someone had taken his coat and the hairs on his body were stiff with dried sewage. His injured shoulder, though, had been cleaned and wrapped in bandages. Had he been captured or rescued? Slish, slosh, something moved in the sewage. Wild Boy sat up and stared into the arched darkness. He heard liquid dripping from above. He heard his own shallow breaths getting deeper and faster with fear. And then, there it was again. A slow, sloshing sound echoing off the curved walls. Was it a rat? Wild Boy! That was no rat. Someone was coming this way. He had to get up and move. He slid from the ledge and dropped into a river of stinking slush. Foul water soaked his hair as he groped for the dark, crawling away from the voice. "Hear that?" the voice said. "Hear what?" another replied. "Swear I had him something up ahead. Give me the knife." The voices grew louder, closer. Wild Boy was too dazed to escape. He had to fight. Whoever these men were, they sounded almost as scared as him. Maybe he could catch them by surprise. If he screamed and ran at them, they might turn and flee. He braced himself, shaking with fear as they came closer. "Now!" he thought, "now!" He opened his mouth to scream, but then a hand shot from the dark and smothered his cry. "Keep silent," someone whispered in his ear. Wild Boy tried to pull away, but the hand tightened around his mouth, almost crushing his jaw. A wrinkled face leaned closer. "They're after you, Master Wild. Bounty hunters." It was Sir Oswald. Wild Boy cried out again, but this time in delight. He had never been so relieved to see another person. He wanted to ask what was happening, but now his friend gripped his arm and guided him into an alcove in the wall. Sir Oswald slid in after him and huddled close, resting the stumps of his thighs on Wild Boy's lap. In the tunnel the footsteps came closer. Wild Boy's eyes had become used to the darkness and could just make out the squat shapes of two men crouched low as they waded past. The man at the back sounded nervous. "What if Wild Boy is down here?" "Then we're rich," his partner replied. "Ain't that the point? Rewards doubled this past week." "Reward? Week?" But Wild Boy stayed silent. He waited, deadly still, until the men had passed and their voices were a distant echo in the dark. Sir Oswald shifted from Wild Boy's lap and gave his knee a cheery pat. "That was a wheeze, eh? Come on, they might turn back." Wild Boy didn't follow. He pulled his knees to his chest and curled up tight, which in the darkness would swallow him. "Sir Oswald," he said, "what are you doing here? What's happening? That man said they'd been after me for a week." "Been in a fever, old chap. That wound of yours got infected. Wasn't sure you'd make it at first. Should have known a tough chap like you would pull through, eh? But I ain't no killer. I got to tell the coppers. Out of the question, I'm afraid. Sir Oswald, I got to tell someone what really happened. Sir Oswald turned on his palms. When he spoke again, it was in a voice that Wild Boyd had not heard from him before, deep and serious and full of force. But Master Wild, you are the target of the largest manhunt Master Wild, you are the target of the largest manhunt this city has seen since Jack Sheppard. If you go back up there, the mob will kill you in the street, and the police, I'm afraid they will hang you as soon as look at you. He clapped his hat on his head and grinned. Good news is, it's almost time for supper. Wild Boy sat in the alcove. Sir Oswald splashed away. He wished desperately that he could convince people of his innocence. He wanted to climb back to the street and scream it until they believed him. But Sir Oswald was right. It was too dangerous. He needed a plan, a way out of this, although his mind spun with fear and confusion, and he couldn't think straight. At least he wasn't alone. There was a reward on his head, and most people he knew would sell their own mothers for a few pence. But he could trust Sir Oswald, he was sure. With a heavy heart, he set off after him into the dark.